Okay. Dun, dun, dun. That's gonna be like it says setting up your meeting for Facebook Live, so I don't think it's there yet.
So you're gonna give me
We
powers?
are
Is that what's
rolling.
gonna happen?
Yes, I'm going to give you all of the power and all of the
Or you
things.
can enable screen sharing.
No, I'm gonna do better than that. I'm gonna make you the host.
No, man,
Whoa.
that did not end well last time.
Well, I don't have a choice because I don't know how to do it any other way.
Oh, okay.
So for those of you who are just joining us, I spent literally the past 10 minutes trying to figure out how to make this thing go live, which I've done like, what, 10 times? And today,
At least 5 or 6.
five or six, and I just decided to break my brain this morning. So welcome. Today we're doing rent versus own. This is our second one, which is really exciting because now we have benchmarks. So if this is your first time joining us and you want to know how things have changed from last time, check out our YouTube page because we'll be documenting them all here. But to introduce myself, my name's Tanisha. I'm with Brick by Brick Real Estate. We've got Megan, we've got Brian. I have turned the power over to Brian, so he is our host, and we're gonna just jump into this thing.
Okay, welcome. Here we go. Let's see if I can do this. Every time it's a disaster, but as long as it's not a worse disaster, then we're good. So tell me if it works. Screen share.
Let's see if Brian can do it. I have faith in you.
Oh, and side note, Megan is also watching our chats on our social media pages. So if you have questions, if you want to be used as a guinea pig, or if you have any feedback, go ahead and message there and we'll incorporate you in and answer your questions live.
Okay, cool. Okay, kids. Alicia, tell me what a typical rental would be in your market up there, up in the Bluffdale.
Okay.
That's kind of what we're looking at.
I thought you were gonna like ask me to say what we're looking at, and I was like, I don't freaking know or remember. I feel like last time I should be like, oh yeah, I got this.
I got it. No.
And now
It's a learning process for all of us, for sure.
That's too easy.
And I'm like, what is this?
Okay, we're gonna take it section at a time. And what we're gonna look at is the difference between renting and owning, right? Rent to own. So
Yeah.
a tip, what we're looking at, we're gonna try to keep it somewhat accurate-ish. So what would a townhome that sells for $350,000, for example, what would be the market? What would you have to pay for rent for that, something like that? So and the answer is probably, we figure around 1,940, right? Tanisha, that is your number. That is your number.
Okay.
So I think that's pretty close. So the question is, do I rent at $1,940 per month? Or do I buy that same townhome for $350,000, right?
Yeah.
And what we've done is, was that?
This is just like the cost to rent, not utilities, not anything else included,
right.
No HOA, just the rent payment.
Correct. And so what we're really comparing is the rent payment with your mortgage payment, which when you own a home, you're going to pay your loan payment plus taxes, property taxes, homeowners insurance, and HOA fees, your homeowners association fees, if you buy a townhome. And those will vary a little bit depending on which complex you're in and all that. But we just kind of built this all in, so it'll kind of give us a good comparison. So what we're looking at is, the first thing we look at is what we call is our cash flow. Up right here in the middle, top middle, estimated cash flow. So if you were to buy a $350,000 townhome, and we're just going to keep this real simple, and you borrow $350,000, right?
Right.
Your payment on that's going to be, as you see here, $1,429. Add in all this stuff, taxes, insurance, and we even put in some money for repairs, because when you own your own home, you're going to be responsible for repairs.
Got it.
What will those repairs be, Tanisha? You're the queen of all repairs. No, you're the queen of adding on. That's what you do.
I'm the queen of whatever you want to put on the end, as long as it's a good thing.
Exactly,
she's also been known to make holes in her walls and fix those up, so she's pretty good at that too.
Yeah.
Yes. For a monthly repair budget of $145.
We built that into the mortgage payment.
Okay.
So it runs you about $1,831 per month, right? If you rent that house, your rent's going to be a little higher, but pretty close, right? Within $130 or so. Okay. One thing we do know about rent, though, is it's going to go up.
Always
goes up, right? So we've got it going up a little bit, and you can see that, and I'll show you a graph over on the right, but right here, you see it starts out at 1940, and we've run this comparison out 9 years for 9 years. I don't know why, just 9 years.
Kicks and giggles.
Yeah, nice year. Not 10's too even, so 9's good. So your rent will be about $2,458 if it goes up like we think, 3% annual increase.
Is there a way to see this in reverse? Like, can we check out and see like what it was 9 years ago to see if, because to me, I'm like, holy frick. But then I'm like, you know what? That probably makes sense just with inflation and how things are going up in general, demand, all of that.
Yeah, that's hard. That's a tough question to answer because the rental data is hard to get. Because when you rent something, you're going to rent it from a landlord, and it is what it is. It's not publicly known. Sales prices we can look up, right? We know what houses sell for. That's a little tougher. But yeah, I think we're pretty confident in our 3% estimate.
Like 5 years ago, I was getting an apartment. It was just me and my daughter getting an apartment. And for a 2-bedroom, 2-bath apartment, and we were in West Jordan, I was paying $1,100 a month. So that was just 5 years ago in just an apartment.
Yeah.
So just for a little bit of reference there.
Well, 9 years from now, we'll come back to this video and we will have all of the things. We'll have all the data.
It will be archived forever.
Yeah.
Yeah. So notice on the right, there's our little graph, right? So the darker color, the 1831, that's our mortgage payment. And the nice thing about a 30-year fixed rate mortgage, which is the most common type of mortgage that we do, the payment's not going to move much. Your taxes will change a little bit here and there. Insurance might change a little bit, but for the vast majority of your payment, it's going to stay pretty steady over for forever, for essentially 30 years. Look at the rent though. The rent goes up. If assuming our 3% increase, that's the difference in your payment every month. So it's, in this particular case, it's more expensive to rent on a monthly cash flow basis. The other thing we want to look at, and of course that's called cash flow, right? So you're $40,000 more expensive for the next 9 years to rent that townhome versus buy that townhome.
So let's look at this kind of from another perspective as well. So this is if we're looking at renting versus owning it. What if we already own it and we're looking at renting it out? What are we looking at for as far as making money in this market?
So to be the same in reverse. So you're the buyer, you're one guy, you're paying 1831, and if you rent it for 1940, then that's where you'd be. You'd be making $130 or so.
So your difference would be kind of from where the blue bar and the purple bar end, or one starts. That's like your profit margin. So your profit.
That's your profit margin, right? That's your gross profit. Yeah.
So I feel like last time we did this, and since we're doing it quarterly, that would have been 3 months ago, right? I felt like we had pretty much said, okay, over the next 6 months, you're pretty safe if you're needing to like fix your credit, kind of do things of that nature. But then after that, I felt like year one right now, there's like a significant difference. Has that changed? Like, I feel like based off of the graph that we had last time, that the rate, at least in the first year, wasn't terrible. What's the difference in that margin right there between, I mean, is it just between 1,831 and 2,494? So about $500?
Yeah, about that. Yeah. You're talking about rates specifically, right? Interest rates?
Not necessarily, well, interest rates are going to play a factor in it as well. But we had always talked about, okay, at the end of this video, the goal is to be able to determine, does it make sense for me to rent right now and maintain renting, or does it make sense to buy? And if so, when's that tipping point? Is it right now? Is it 5 years from now? Whatever. Yeah. And by the end of our last video, we had pretty much said that if your goal is to buy in this market with the rate that things are going, it's in your best interest to secure a property sooner rather than later. But over the next 6 months or so, we projected that the interest rates would kind of stay the same. I know we have election and other things that we're going to talk about a little bit later. And I'm just curious to know, like, is that grace period still there? Or is it like, hey, you've got 6 months, but it's going to take $500 out of your wallet? Kind of like that risk versus reward. Yeah,
that's a great question. Right? Let me skip pages here. We have two issues there. Is number one, what is the price of this $350,000 townhome? Maybe that same townhome was $370,000 now. You know, I don't know. It's hard to say because the overall, we got some numbers, in fact, this morning. The national home appreciation, I mean, this is nationally, was 9.5%, I think, last 12 months,
Wow.
which is nationally. Utah's well ahead of that. I don't have the Utah numbers for last year, but it's got to be 12, 15%, right? Overall. So if you figure that's the case, maybe this 350 is now 380, and that changes things, right? So see how I changed that right there? See that 19 right there?
Mm-hmm.
So the difference between a $350,000 townhome and a $380,000 townhome is right there. So you go about
Seems like
$120 a month.
if your budget is a little bit higher, you kind of have a little bit more flexibility before things take off. So
Right.
really you've got a year or two to kind of like figure out whatever reasons that it doesn't make sense to buy in this moment, if that's your goal to buy later, and not much is going to change. If anything, that first year, it looks like purple is a little bit higher. So it might be in your best interest to wait a little bit longer.
Yeah.
So it's interesting how the loan amount specifically is going to dictate. So if anyone's watching and is curious, know that what you can afford is going to play in a big role in as far as if it makes sense to do one over the other.
Yeah, and the key here is to have a plan, because a lot of times a lot of clients we work with really are better off waiting for 6 months, even though there's some interest rate risk there, not a lot, but a little bit, but mainly appreciation risk. What's this house is $450,000. What's it going to cost in 6 months from now? It may be worth waiting for other reasons, right? Maybe a job change, some money coming in for something or whatever to change how much they put down or whatever it is. There's all these different things we can look at, but the idea is you want to know you want to know now what's going to look like when you're going to be ready, or even we need to identify when that time is going to be.
And
maybe
the cool thing
it
with this
turns out.
chart is you can plug in any number from anyone, right? If we have
Yeah.
Joe come up and he says, "Hey, I'm looking at this townhouse. It's for sale for 350, but there's one across the street that I can rent for this much a month. What's the better deal?" We can plug in
Yeah.
your exact information and give you
Yeah.
this little printout.
Definitely.
That's
And that's
exactly right. That's what it's really designed for, is to customize it like that. And we not only look at the cash flow, that's just one of the issues. We look at how much appreciation are you missing out on potentially, right? So we're forecasting, and this is, I think, is pretty conservative, a 4.32% appreciation in Salt Lake County, actually, is what this is. So if you buy a place for 350, then now this is 9 years out, right? In 9 years, you're picking up, $162,000 of value. That's another thing to consider. And when you're renting, you're just renting, right? You're making you're making somebody's mortgage payment. You're not making your own. So there's that. The other thing we look at is what's called amortization gain, which is simply how much you're paying down on your mortgage, right? So you're going to sell it. You're going to pay it down over 9 years, about $83,000. So those are the three sections. There's appreciation of the property. There's the cash flow every month, and then there's how much you're going to miss out by not paying a mortgage down and rather paying the landlord's mortgage instead. That's how that works. It's been as simple as that.
Yeah, it looks a lot less scary. So kind of like recapping at the top, we're looking at, okay, this is my cash flow as far as whether it's going to a house or to rent and how it's going to change over the next 9 years. And then the next part is specifically geared towards, because I own a house, I now can gain equity. It's going to appreciate. And then with the amortization gain, on that front, explain that a little bit more, because I feel like appreciation makes sense. Okay, my house is worth more in 9 years from now when I bought it, so I'm netting, the difference there of 176.
Right.
It's now worth 556. Explain that other right side, because I feel like that's where a lot of people get stuck of like, I don't understand what that means.
Okay, great question. So when you borrow your $380,000, I switched that one to a 380, by the way. I had 350 in there. But if you borrow $380,000 and you make a payment every month, part of that payment goes to interest and part of it goes to principal to reduce your loan amount over time, just like a car loan, only stretched out for 30 years. So by just making your payment every month, you're going to reduce the amount that you owe. So when you sell that home, you're going to owe less than you did when you started.
Got it. So the 260 or 296 is what I have left to pay, and the 83 is what I've gained because that's what I've paid towards my loan.
Correct.
So with a cash flow difference, what is that calculating?
So the cash flow difference is the difference between over this 9-year period that we're looking at. It's the difference between what you're paying in rent and what you're paying, what you're paying in rent and what you would pay in a mortgage payment.
So is that summed up all together? So like, okay,
It's 9 years worth. Yeah, 9 years worth. Yeah.
okay.
And we've modified it since we started. So we've made the mortgage payment higher because we borrowed more money, the 380,000 instead of 350,000.
Mhm.
And then we left the rent the same, the 1940. So you can see that year one here, right there, there's your cost. Your mortgage payment is 2,032.
Got it.
And your rent the first year is actually less. So you're ahead that first year in terms of cash flow, the first
Okay.
year. And then see how it kind of equalizes out. Your rent
So
goes
does
up
that mean next year, if I do this, it's going to be the same thing, or can I be like, oh, I'm just going to wait till next year and start at that launch point and go?
Yeah, it could be. Yeah, but you do miss out on appreciation. You'll probably, where the market's going right now, the purchase price of the house you purchase a year from now will be higher than it is now.
Mhm.
If
I
it
feel like
appreciates.
the conversation I'm having with a lot of my clients is based on, because there's always that like FOMO of risk of, fear of missing out, of like, okay, what if I wait till next year? Or I don't know. And I feel like the biggest driving factor, and I feel like this is a good illustration of it, is whatever your goals are now, let's start reaching what those goals are. If you can be
Yeah.
comfortable and happy in your new place of where you want to be tomorrow, there's no reason why we shouldn't do that tomorrow. Because if we wait until 6 months, yes, things may or may not be, but why not start utilizing that now? And if anything, a year from now, the property values are definitely going up with the way that things are right now. The interest rate might be a little bit higher. And then it's like we're at that same starting point. So regardless whether that's now, a year from now, or in 5 years, it's still a starting point. And so I feel like it just makes sense that the situation then versus now isn't that much different.
Correct. That's right. That's right. So that's exactly right. So ultimately, in most cases, we're seeing, I think this is a little more accurate, that you are going to dip. Your payment's going to be a little bit higher than your rent would be that first year, but it catches up, as you can see, pretty fast.
Mm-hmm,
But you're right. You missed out on the amortization gain as well as this appreciation gain as well. So.
And I just pulled up a townhouse for sale in Bluffdale right now, and it's listed at 344.9. So I think we're pretty spot on with where we have our
Okay.
numbers there if we had the 350. And then we did just look on Rentler this morning and found a rent that's the exact same townhouse as this one for sale. So with that purchase price at 350 and the rent at about 1950, like that's very accurate for today.
Oh, good. Okay, good. That's good. So this one may be a little more pessimistic actually than we changed it to 380, but you can see how that works. And the idea is to customize it and find out exactly where you're at.
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of people, like I said, they wait for the wrong reasons a lot of times, and sometimes for the right reasons, but sometimes for the wrong reasons. Like they think, for example, a lot of clients believe, I got to save a little more as a down payment. I've got, $4,000 or $5,000. I need to save another 10,000. And that's awesome. Except sometimes, depending on what your savings pace is, how much you can save every month, you may not keep pace with the increasing price of the houses. That's what we're seeing now, unfortunately. So so we have 0 down payment loans that can get you started a lot quicker as well. But
so down payment is a bad excuse. I feel like a good excuse to wait would be if you are doing a credit repair plan and you're a month or two away from reaching a tax bracket that's or not tax bracket. What am I trying to say? Credit score that gives you
a credit score higher,
doors to different programs that you can utilize. That would be a good excuse, right?
Yeah, that'd be a good reason, valid reason. And by the way, as far as the credit fix stuff goes, I'm begging you, please, we need to get a real plan, because if you're going to rely on Credit Karma's advice, which is pretty solid, I think overall, getting your credit score higher, they're right on a lot. Credit Karma is a very popular app, and I like it a lot. But it's right for the most part, but it's geared more toward consumer debt, credit cards, car payments, car loans. That's what it's geared toward. The mortgage credit score is a little bit different, and like especially how you handle collection accounts is a completely different animal in the mortgage world than it is with the consumer finance world. So we can do a credit check and do all that stuff and figure it out, but we want to make sure you do it with a real plan. Otherwise, you may be spinning your wheels.
Definitely. And like to showcase Brian a little bit, I looked at one of our clients' reviews for like what they needed to do because we had put together a plan, and it was literally down to the penny. It was like $17.32 to here, you know, $122 and whatever to here. And so if you're just like
Yeah.
knowing that you want to fix your credit, yes, paying things off is important, but where you pay things off first, how much you're paying towards each, there's a strategy, and you can change like a year-long credit repair process to a couple of months if you know the right boxes to check. And
Yeah.
kind of going back to that, we want to hear from you, regardless of whether you're looking to buy a house now, or if you're like, you know what, sometime 5 years from the future, we still want to start working with you. All of our contracts, Megan, we'll say our agency agreements with all of our clients are for 1 calendar year, and every single year we're renewing those. We're continuously working with them. We're helping run these analysis and numbers to see exactly where they're at. And so if you're not looking to buy right this moment, that's not an excuse. We still want to talk to you. We want to figure out what that game plan looks like exactly, and start helping you reach that today. There's no reason to wait. There's no costs or obligations for those services. So really it's just you against you at this point.
Yeah, exactly right.
That's an awesome point you made about that. We have a ton of people we're working with right now. I mean, 10 to 20 people that are just on credit repair plans, and we're here to help you make that plan. Brian's part of our team to make that plan right. And then we're also here just one to champion you and cheerlead you and help you along the way as you make these milestones. Because I mean, paying down debt's not easy. I mean, if it is, we would have all done it by now. So we definitely want to be a resource to you to help you and just kind of champion along the way and keep the big picture in mind. One question, Brian, I have for you that we've been getting a lot lately. When we start talking to someone about doing credit repair, a lot of people say, oh, I don't want to pull my credit right now because I don't want to hurt it when I go to pull my credit for like the qualification for a loan. What do you say in those situations?
Yeah, the answer is sometimes in most cases you're going to need to pull it, really, because you don't have to. And I can give you some good advice based on what you know about your credit report. Like I said, we mentioned Credit Karma earlier. Credit Karma is a pretty cool app, and you can get real-time updates on it. And I can give you an idea, but the way our credit rescoring, kind of what's called a what if analyzer, goes directly into with the bureaus, the credit bureaus, and says, oh, if I do this, what will happen to my score? If I do this, and it will tell us exactly what to do. So if you want to be able to repair, sometimes it's not repair, it's just improving, right? Nothing dramatic. Right. Tweaking your credit, moving stuff around a little bit. If I get your full credit report, which is free, by the way, and it's much easier to read than those free credit reports you get every year. You can get them every year. This is actually in a table format. It's really nice to read. Anyway, we can take it, we can really narrow it down and be a lot more efficient with how you move your money around and what you pay down, pay off. Sometimes we open accounts. Sometimes we have a credit card, for example, that you haven't used for a while. And I say, go buy a tank of gas, and float that $18. Okay, small tank, but anyway, $18, you float that.
What kind of car are you driving?
Well, my Tesla, doesn't use a lot of gas, but yeah. So now to answer your question, we want to talk first for sure. And sometimes it's not worth pulling at that point. We look at everything as a big package: employment, what down payment, what your payment goals are, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So either way,
I also want to answer that on a real estate side, because we're on the same team, but I feel like we kind of each stay in our lanes as far as where we specialize. What I like to do, obviously, like being guarded about your credit is important. Obviously, it weighs into so many different factors of your life. So being cautious of it is a good indicator that you're on the right path and that you're thinking the right way. But it shouldn't be a stopgap for you to not progress forward. And so in cases where we don't want to pull credit up front, that's completely fine. Kind of the process that we take is we still have that initial consultation with Brian. We give him our best guess of where we think our credit is, where our income is, and all the pieces. So that way we can get a ballpark idea. And from there, we can go to the market. We can look at homes. We can see which ones fit our needs. And when we get to the point to where like, this is the one, this is the house that I would really want to move for, at that point, it makes sense. Awesome. Let's pull credit. Let's make sure, like, Brian, how long does it take you to pull credit and to pre-approve someone officially?
Half an hour, 20 minutes.
There we are.
It's quick. Yeah. And it's quick. It's very confidential.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
So within one day, we can find your dream house. We can pull credit. We can do all of that. And then at that point, If we're not quite there yet, yes, we'll have to tweak, we'll have to maneuver and go from there. So like Brian said, it's in your best interest to do it at the beginning, so that way we know exactly, we don't have those pitfalls of it potentially it not working out and missing out on a home. But if that's not something you're comfortable with and you're okay with that risk, that's okay too. At the end of the day, we're just here to present all of the information in front of you, and you get to decide, okay, this is what I feel comfortable with. And whether that's pulling credit right at the beginning or when you're ready to buy a house, that's decision yours, and we're going to support you either way.
Yep, exactly. So that's pretty much it. There you go.
One last question I had for you, Brian. So a lot of people right now, as we talked about before, like, I don't have a down payment. I don't have much of a down payment. How am I going to save up for this in time to, catch up with this ever increasing market? A lot of our buyers are first time home buyers. What kind of grants and programs are available for those buyers right now?
Oh, great question. There's several out there depending on what area, what city you're buying in. There are grant programs. You mentioned grant programs. There are several grant programs out there. They vary by town, by city. West Jordan has one. Salt Lake City has them. Bluffdale. I don't know if they have one anymore. They get grant money from federal agencies. It shows up one day and they have it until it's gone. But those will generally be, $10,000, $15,000, $20,000, even up to $40,000 grants in one form or another for down payment assistance. The other program we use a lot of is Utah Housing, which is a kind of a quasi-government nonprofit that's been around since the 70s. And they help us do FHA loans with zero out of pocket, zero down payment. There's rural housing, which works in some areas. So there's all sorts of stuff for the zero down. There's a lot of stuff. Then there's also gift opportunities. If you got rich uncle, it'll give you some money. There's that possibility. Parents often help out. There's lots of things you can do.
Definitely.
Yeah. Yep.
And it kind of comes down to,
so there's a lot of stuff out there.
Yeah, we want to talk to you, contact us, and we'll start putting a game plan to you. So I just want to say thank you everybody for taking the time to join us today. Next month, we're going to be talking about affordability. Just to reiterate one last stat, we had kind of talked about how between 90% of first-time home buyers don't have the full down payment, that these programs that Brian's mentioning and the things that are available are for you. So don't, it's not a knock against you if you're in that same boat. You're literally with the majority. So we want to talk to you. Is there anything else that we're missing?
That's pretty much it.
Oh, one thing, as we're talking about tax times coming up right now, what are some good tax benefits of owning a home?
Very good. It depends on, the main one everyone thinks of is mortgage interest. The interest that you pay on a mortgage can be tax deductible depending on your tax rate. It really depends on what your income level is. Some people can take advantage of it. Some people can't. It really depends on what your income is. So there's that. Also, you can write off your property taxes in many cases, depending on your tax situation. Please consult your tax advisor.
Brian is not a licensed tax advisor. Neither are Megan or Tanisha.
On the flip side, as I hold this, like I have an office in my home, and so I can write off my utilities, I can write off the space, I can write off my internet. So a lot of the expenses that you have included in your home, especially with COVID, where the majority of us are working from home, that's a huge tax benefit that you have as well.
Yeah, that's right. Home-based business. There's all sorts of stuff. Yeah. And the good thing is you don't have to move. You don't have to move.
And guys, if you have any questions about any of these things, we may not always have the answer, but we know someone who does. We can get in touch with tax professionals. We can get in touch with local experts to get you the information that you need to help you make the best decision for you.
Definitely.
Yep,
all right. Well, we did it. Brian, you're on your own. We're just going to leave you.
This is the hard part.
I know the button, the big red button up at the top.
To end everything. So sayonara, we'll see you later.
Sayonara, everybody.
See ya.